Those two poofters, you know, they live in that house and they're likely to have sex together, and you could be sent to jail for 14 years.
One of the most urgent political issues for the gay and lesbian community was the repeal of state laws criminalising male homosexual acts.
So I'm opposed to it being repealed because it's clearly taught in the Bible as something which is an abomination, which is a very strong word, and it means something which God, the Creator, hates.
Despite the loud resistance to change, laws criminalising homosexual acts were slowly repealed. The last state to do so was Tasmania in 1997.
We don't want to be molested, we don't want to be contested, we don't want to be arrested, we just want our rights.
Oh, these are lovely.
Thank you.
There's more.
Despite this victory, hundreds of gay men still had criminal records from convictions under the old laws. Bon was one of them.
There's milk and sugar if you...
God, it really feels like we're part of, like, it's steeped in history, this house.
Eventually, those early convictions did become extinguishable in most of Australia. In 2017, Bon's record was finally wiped clean.
I advise that I am satisfied of the matters set out in section 19C in relation to the offence. Accordingly, by this notice, the conviction is now extinguished.
Well, how does it feel, Bon, knowing that you're no longer considered a criminal in the eyes of the New South Wales government?
It's good to get out from under a conviction.
Well, I suppose to put it in simple terms, what it was like to be living open and out. You were exposing yourself to a community which in general was hostile. They didn't know much about gays or lesbians. At times, you know, we were felt like aliens because you were being looked at, you know. What do gays really look like?
Now, this may be a subject which you feel that you or your children would do better to avoid. If so, please switch off now. If not, here is our report from Sydney, the golden city of the gays. The majority of gays are probably still hiding in that secrecy that they call the closet.
But by the early 80s, enough were out, determined to be seen, heard and acknowledged.
I think there are rites of passage that we all need to go through as a society. And if you're excluded from them, it does something to you, I think. And I think it's really important to at least feel that you have the possibility of being included in those rites of passage.
We have gathered here this afternoon as friends and family of Stephen and Michael.
Some gay and lesbian couples yearned for long-term commitment.
Joining in commitment.
The early 80s saw a few progressive religious institutions offer wedding-like ceremonies.
I promise to honor.
I promise to honor.
And tenderly care for you.
And tenderly care for you.
To cherish.
To cherish.
And encourage.
Other religious leaders were squarely opposed to it.
What would you say about a church that would offer a marriage ceremony for homosexuals?
The gay liberation movement has gone out on a limb in order to achieve a great deal in a hurry, indeed to change the character of Australian society, and that is something that we just cannot back.
In the name of the Creator, the Redeemer, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. You may embrace each other.
Peter has fed me for all these years. He's held my hand all this time. There were 10 years that I spent caring for men and women living with AIDS. That was very, very heavy work, which I could never have done unless I was able to come home to this man who was able to support me.
Albion Street Centre, can I help you?
Sydney's AIDS clinic, the first stop for anyone who's worried. By this time next year, this clinic will be one of the city's busiest. And we're told that everyone who comes here expects to die.
We get decriminalisation and we're met with the HIV and AIDS crisis. Our community goes into a panic mode. So this was not a time to be campaigning on some of these political issues. because we needed to stay alive. And this really dominated gay and lesbian life throughout the 80s and 90s. And I think the important link to marriage equality here is, throughout this process, we also learnt the importance of relationship recognition and the protections that come with that.
A lot of people in the LGBTI community didn't realise the extent to which they were discriminated against.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, until they actually hit a hard time, like the loss of a partner, for example, or having to go into hospital and being excluded from the hospital room of their partner. Over time, what I hope is that young people growing up won't have to worry about the rights they didn't have.
Ma'am, let's just butter it. Cool. Can you check how hard the oven is, please? Sure.
Growing up in a so-called non-traditional family, Edie Shepherd learned at a young age how important it was to fight for equality.
My mum and my dad had me quite young, and Dad remarried, and Mum was in a relationship with another woman for about 8 years. So, yeah, that was always fun to explain in the schoolyard. 3 mums and a dad. Parent-teacher interviews were funny. You want to do the honours and mix, Mum? I got pretty badly bullied at a primary school. And it was when it sort of became known that my mum was with a woman, you know, the teasing and the taunting kind of really started. It's too gloopy. And I have really clear memories of part of that being like, oh, well, it's not a real family because they're not married. Where's the ring? Should put this bad boy in the oven? Yes. What? Mum's favourite thing to do was to, like, pop me up on her shoulders and take me to, you know, like, pride marches and stuff. I don't think I would have ever gotten away with not being engaged in politics. It's definitely been handed along down the line in my family. Oh, the brownies burnt. How bad are they? Like smoking bad. Oh. Wow, so it is both burnt and raw? Yeah. Amazing.
Where's Magda? Magda, here you are. Mags, how are you feeling, darling? I think this woman deserves a special round of applause. What an incredible human being, Magda Szubanski. How are you feeling, Mags?
Look, seriously, these people, everyone has done the most extraordinary job. I think, like all of us here, I don't know what to feel yet. We'll know in a few moments. But I look at all of you beautiful, amazing people, and there is no way that we can lose because we are a strong, loving community. So all of us will pull together. And this is an amazing moment, no matter what the outcome. Love yous all. Woo!
I was never had the, you know, images of being a bride or anything. I was like, bleh, you know, lacy shit. But I'm also quite romantic, and I've always thought that I, you know, love the idea of being able to get married and walk down the aisle. And I love tradition. I really love tradition. But I think that tradition, if it doesn't evolve, it dies.
Oh, yes. Jewish wedding. How 20 years have changed the colour of our hair.
Oh, this is hilarious. Popular media commentator Dr. Karen Phelps, 40, and her 40-year-old partner, Jamie Strickland.
Well, why is that hilarious and don't say it on tape? They always thought I was younger than you.
In 1998, Jackie and Karen's commitment ceremony became news.
That was one of the Sunday papers.
It created a public outcry and set the stage for the debate on marriage equality in Australia.
I don't think anyone in the country could miss the story on Karen and Jackie and what was reported as their marriage.
We were driving along and Karen just sort of looked across in the car and said, "What, do you want to marry me?" And I went, "We can't get married."
At the time, same-sex couples could not be legally married anywhere in the world. But that didn't stop commitment ceremonies from happening.
I got on the internet and started researching rabbis in New York.
Beautiful. Congratulations, Mazel Tov.
It was beautiful.
Joining me to discuss the AMA's position is National President Dr. Karen Phelps.
Karen was a really well-known Australian personality, and she was getting married to a teacher from a very prestigious private girls' school.
Have you got the one when we were first out?
Yeah, it's
I'll never forget that.
Suddenly we had basically the first time in which we were talking about marriage of same-sex couples in popular media. This was a hugely significant moment, and you know, they are really at the vanguard of the marriage equality movement.
It's the first time a high-profile Australian has been openly in a gay marriage. And already there have been attacks on Kerryn Phelps and Jackie Stricker.
I wanted to do whatever it was that made an ultimate commitment, and marriage was the ultimate commitment. So I came back all happily married and didn't even think for a single minute that there would be an issue. I mean, obviously, I was an idiot for not thinking that. This ended up on the desk of the head mistress where I was teaching, and I got a little note from her saying, somebody could have at least warned me that you were going to be in something called Lesbians on the Loose, which at the time I didn't think was funny, but now I think is hilarious. There was this undercurrent feeling at the time that as long as you didn't talk about it, it was okay.
It was like a whole community don't ask, don't tell policy.
It very much was.
We'll put up with you as long as you don't talk about it.
The Supreme Court in Canada has given the government the go-ahead to legalise gay marriage. The landmark ruling clears the way for Canada to follow the Netherlands and Belgium in authorising same-sex marriage.
This was huge, particularly in the context of Canada, because Australian couples could go over there and they could get married. Then what happens to them when they return? This sent a political curveball, because the Marriage Act did not define marriage as between a man and a woman.
There are reports that people are contemplating, gay couples from Australia going to Canada and then coming back to Australia and seeking to take legal action in our courts to have their marriages recognised in Australia. Now, we think that would be unacceptable to most Australians.
It discriminates against a group of Australians.
No, I'm sorry, it's not discriminating against them. It is discriminating in favour of an institution which is basic to the cohesion of our society.
The response was to make sure that the Marriage Act put a lock on same-sex couples being able to get married in Australia. Really a move of political bastardry.
The party room has approved recommendations to firstly amend the Marriage Act to insert into the Act the commonly accepted definition of a marriage as the union of a man and a woman to the exclusion of all others.
I was about 9 or 10 when John Howard amended the Marriage Act. And I really, really distinctly remember the feeling in my house when that happened. It was white-hot anger and it was incredibly sad. It was definitely one of those really formative moments.
But of course it wasn't just John Howard.
Labor has made clear that we don't support gay marriage.
It basically had the two major parties saying, if you are gay, we want to make sure that you are not to be treated equally.
When they changed the law to deliberately exclude us, I thought that was fucked, you know. I just thought that was like sneaky.
We knew that that was a signal that we really had to gear up at that time.
It was like declaring war. It really was. It felt like war had been declared.
Want a coffee?
Yes, please.
Okay, what would you like?
The usual, please.
Okay.
For Alex Greenwich, the fight for marriage equality was personal. He married his partner Victor in Argentina.
Oh.
They didn't want to endure an agonising wait for the laws to change at home.
So, sweetie, this is where we first met.
Yeah, I know.
Like 10 years ago, on the dance floor.
As a New South Wales state MP, Alex advocated for marriage equality.
Mr. Speaker, the vast majority of New South Wales and the Australian communities have opened their hearts and minds to support the right of LGBTI people to marry the person they love in the country that they love.
In 2007, Alex became a leader of Australian Marriage Equality, the largest lobby group fighting against discrimination in the Marriage Act.
My job was very much to stick to the script and to sort of stay steely-faced, happy and upbeat. Hi, I'm Alex from Australian Marriage Equality, and I've got something to say. This year is a key year for the fight for marriage equality, and we all need to take action to get there.
A 2004 poll showed a meagre 38% public support.
So there is a huge amount of work that needs to be done to open the hearts and minds of Australians to support this reform. And here's this group of courageous, dedicated volunteers saying we're going to take this on.
Their opponents were rich and powerful with political sway.
I call them the dark forces. They're usually the organised religions.
Veritatis Splendor repeats the Church's condemnation of contraception, premarital sex and homosexuality as intrinsically evil.
There are certain politicians who affiliate themselves with these religious groups. I think they're the main opponents.
Why is the Church so opposed to same-sex marriage?
Well, Koshi, the reality is that it still takes the involvement of a man and a woman to create a child, and therefore a man and a woman should be involved in the nurturing of that child as its natural order. We took into the Parliament the other day an endorsed document by over 50 churchmen from right across the evangelical, the Pentecostal, the Catholic and the Orthodox divide.
Religion and state really should be kept separate where this is concerned.
Perhaps the strongest lobby group opposed to marriage equality was the Australian Christian Lobby.
The Australian Christian Lobby is a very well-funded, very well-connected organisation with close links to most major parties.
The Australian Christian Lobby is mobilising churchgoers in 15 marginal seats. Kevin Rudd and John Howard have both been happy to court the faithful.
Just up until recently, the Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition, whatever political party they were in, would always attend an Australian Christian Lobby forum.
The Christian constituency is obviously about bringing good influence into public policy, and I would encourage them to listen to that good influence.
Australian Christian Lobby ran what seemed like a targeted campaign, not only against marriage equality, but against the LGBTI community. In fact, that seems to be the purpose of their existence.
Marriage is between a man and a woman because of children.
Men and women are getting away with no intention of having children and with no biological possibility of having children.
That makes no difference to the intention of marriage, which is
You're telling me two people in their 70s have an intention to have children? We've had to keep the debate dignified and respectful, but, you know, sometimes you just want to come home and scream.
What is the next step? There are even some creepy people out there who say that it's okay to have consensual sexual relations between humans and animals.
The arguments that you're having thrown at you are so offensive and so hurtful and so ridiculous.
I think this whole campaign would do great credit to Joseph Goebbels, you know, because what we've had is we've had the demonisation.
Hang on.
Wait a minute, Koshi.
That's a bit emotional.
It's like we can talk about you in any derogatory way we feel like, but if we were talking about you in a derogatory way as far as your religion is concerned or your race, we wouldn't get away with it.
Prime Minister-elect Kevin Rudd has wasted no time on the first day of Labor's spectacular election win.
The end of the Howard government in 2007 raised the possibility of change. But hopes were soon dashed.
I actually believe that marriage is between a man and a woman.
And dashed again.
The Labor Party's policy is very, very clear here, that the Marriage Act, which specifies that marriage is between a man and a woman, will be unchanged.
Nevertheless, the tide was turning. Although both major parties still opposed marriage equality, popular mood was changing. With the majority of Australians now behind them, activists targeted the Labor Party.
And that was quite a day where we had, you know, tens of thousands of people marching on the ALP conference. We were cutting through and we were having an impact.
It paid off, sort of. In 2011, the ALP changed their party platform from officially opposing marriage equality to allowing their MPs a conscience vote.
Today, to see the ALP change its platform, I want to congratulate our champions within the ALP. These people are fighting for us, and we are here to stay. And the only way that you will get rid of us is if you introduce marriage equality, and you introduce it now.
I've been talking with Karen and Jackie for years about coming out. For me personally, coming out kind of, you know, whatever, but if it was going to help other people, then it kind of made it much more worthwhile doing. Fame is like a currency, you know, spend it well, spend it wisely, I think.
The media in a spin over Magda Szubanski today. It seems same-sex marriage is back in focus.
Why have you thrown your support behind gay marriage?
I identify as gay myself. It's only in the last 4 years that we've had anything like the same sort of rights for civil unions, you know. There's a kind of velvet oppression that's going on where people think it's fine for gay people. Young gay people are killing themselves. It's not fine.
You know, I can do the same thing, but it's not without a cost for me, to be honest. I'm not a natural extrovert.
Magda could talk about what people were thinking and feeling. The cost of it is you've always got to stay upbeat at times which were personally really hard. Ah, there we go.
It's a nice picture. Really like this one.
And you'd like a glass of wine, yeah?
Yeah.
Have we actually ever gone through this wedding album together?
I think I've gone through it. You haven't?
I can't remember the last time I saw this.
Because I think we both remember this as a day, the day of our lives. So
yeah, absolutely.
We should go through it every now and then.
These things do have, though, impacts. You know, it had impacts on me at home. Vic would have to deal with someone who would arrive home deflated, depressed. He was excited to see his husband. I was wanting a glass of wine and a cry.
And look at our mums. So happy.
This reform is something that, for all of us involved in it, came at a personal cost. LGBTI law reform has never been easy.
I've reached a stage of frustration. This very simple change to a law which is going to enhance a community. There seems to be amongst the power elite this fear that if this change comes about that the earth will end.
Well, it's certainly urgent for me. 2 years ago I was diagnosed with cancer, and 5 months ago I was told that I had months to live.
There you are. We'll help you with your thirst.
Yes, thank you. In looking forward to dying, one of my sorrows is that I'm not taking Peter with me. I am going to miss him like crazy. Marriage for Peter and me would be a great sort of fulfillment of many years of association and love. To make it official would be just great.
So this is the kind of central information point for people for Blackfellas for Marriage Equality.
As a proud queer Indigenous woman, Edie co-founded Blackfellas for Marriage Equality. Condemnation soon followed.
We just got tagged in a bunch of stuff, and then we started getting like angry messages.
What were they saying?
You're an aberration, you're going to hell. Unpleasant. You know, in a very sick sense, I'm flattered that they think that we're doing a good enough job that they're coming after us now.
It's been critical for every Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person who can to participate. I mean, fundamentally, we know what it is to be discriminated against under the law. And we know what it is to have a big national debate and vote on our rights as people. It happened in 1967. And it wasn't that long ago that our mob had to ask for permission from the state to marry who we wanted. We know this fight. When you cut to the core of this debate, it is about human rights, it's about dignity, and it's about equality. And that's something that everyone should be fighting for.
Same-sex couples across the US can now get married after a US Supreme Court ruling.
By 2015, 19 countries allowed gay marriage, and legislation was on the agenda around the globe.
When the laws started to change one by one in countries overseas, we would have a little celebration.
But I would also get a little bit more angry that Australia hadn't done it yet.
When it got through in Ireland, that was when you could just hear Australians, the brain just clicked over of, oh, come on. From then on, everyone was just like, oh no, we're looking like fools now.
Hundreds of people have staged a noisy rally in the city calling for the legalisation of same-sex marriage.
Loud and proud.
So what do you want?
about time we could get married, legally. We could have done it overseas, but we want to be able to do it here with our family and friends.
In Australia, despite public approval reaching an all-time high, 16 different marriage equality bills had failed.
It is extraordinary that you can have 72% support from the population and the politicians won't let it go through. You know, they'll find any way that they can to stop it from happening.
None of the previous marriage equality bills had come from a coalition MP. That changed in 2015 when Liberal MP Warren Entsch proposed a cross-party bill.
A divided nation is what we will be if we continue to allow discrimination in relation to marriage on the basis of a person's sexuality.
And so we had a good bill with multi-partisan support. And Warren was ready to bring it on, have the vote, see what happens.
But before the bill could come up for a vote, the government found a new way to avoid it.
And what could be fairer than leaving this to the people of Australia?
Tony Abbott proposed to hold a plebiscite, a compulsory national vote on marriage equality. But it was non-binding. Politicians could simply ignore the result.
We had been outplayed by the opponents.
Many were outraged. The plebiscite was seen as not only a waste of taxpayers' money, but something that would subject the LGBTIQ community to the judgment of others.
From a doctor's point of view, I knew how damaging it would be. I knew it would re-traumatise a lot of older people who had been through so much in their lives. And I thought it would be damaging for young people and for families who had really kind of wallpapered over the cracks in their relationships, and we argued strongly against it for that reason.
Good morning, everyone. We did express our concern to the Nationals about the proposed plebiscite process.
After months of intense debate, the plebiscite was rejected. Instead of deciding on marriage equality in Parliament, the coalition government seems set to take the issue off the table until after the federal election in 2019.
And shame again on this dreadful coalition government.
The LGBTIQ community was not prepared to wait any longer.
So please keep up the rage. We were approached by a Sydney journalist who works for the Sun Herald to help our case along. We pointed out, and this is to quote, "For us, it's a really urgent matter." Then we came up with the idea, Bon and I that is, to attach the article to a short note which we wrote about the desperate state we are in at the moment. We decided to forward this article to our Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, on Good Friday, because Good Friday being such an important day in the Christian calendar, and assuming that Mr. Turnbull, being a Christian, that he would take notice of this. There was not even an acknowledgement. My dear sweet Bon, you were for me and countless others my north, my south, my east and my west. Rest in peace, Bon, but rise in glory. Bon's enduring optimism was just, even to me, an amazing thing at times. He was such a courageous man in many ways. He had gone through some really hard times, and I think our love helped. Sorry.
After the defeat of the plebiscite, marriage equality supporters maintained pressure on Parliament.
This isn't just some kind of ideological policy we're talking about. This is people's lives.
Behind the scenes, Liberal Senator Dean Smith had drafted a new bill and was agitating for the coalition to act.
The country is overwhelmingly ready for Parliament to legislate for same-sex marriage.
Dean had also worked hard to get the support of his parliamentary colleagues, a group who started to be affectionately referred to as the Rainbow Rebels. So combined, they were able to join forces to say to their party, let's just get this done.
Victory was in sight.
We are so close.
Then, to the disbelief of campaigners, the government ducked again. This time, they brought back an old tactic with a new name.
We will hold a postal vote on this issue asking the same question, in which all Australians will have their say.
What the... what? Just this half-baked, non-binding survey.
We couldn't stop the postal survey. It was going to happen. So that meant we needed to ramp up like we have never done before.
This may not be the way that we wanted to do this, but it is the way we're going to have to do it. This is going to take everything, and we have to give it everything.
We were going to just hit the ground running, and we did.
We're going to be making calls over the course of this campaign to hundreds and thousands of our fellow Australians.
We want it to be a campaign of 1 million conversations.
Let's get it done.
With only 3 months to mobilise, marriage equality supporters had to build a nationwide campaign almost overnight.
We were just chatting about putting a poster up in the window. Is that okay? Amazing, thank you.
A small grassroots movement grew to over 80 paid staff and 15,000 volunteers.
Now, the next few months are going to be very tough. Don't underestimate the no say.
If you don't like same-sex marriage, vote no. If you're worried about religious freedom and freedom of speech, vote no. And if you don't like political correctness, vote no.
What they were saying was just untrue and manipulative and designed to swing people's opinions using dirty tricks.
School told my son he could wear a dress next year if he felt like it.
Over the coming weeks, we'll be hearing a lot about whether our family and friends who are gay and lesbian can get married.
When you look at some of the messaging and the campaign tactics used by the no side, they're not even talking about marriage equality, they're talking about kids. And to go after little rainbow babies like I was, I get this very intense mama bear protectiveness.
We are under assault because we're on the right side of legal and moral history.
The concierge in my building tells me, oh, your postal survey's arrived, isn't that exciting? It was basically 10 years of fucking advocacy in an envelope. And I sort of thought, this is what it's come to. Whatever the question was, I read as, are gay and lesbian people equal human beings, yes or no? The fact that this question was being asked, the fact that this process was being imposed on gay and lesbian people, the fact that we couldn't stop it, the fact that we hadn't achieved marriage equality, the fact that we had this horrendous targeted campaign against us. All of that was in that piece of paper. But then, literally wiped the tears away, put on a brave face and did a press conference about how exciting this opportunity was for all Australians to play a part in shaping Australia as a fairer and more equal place. But what I'm thinking of is what ultimate political bastardry had occurred, and that we now have to do this.
What do we want? Marriage equality! When do we want it? Now! We want equal rights! When do we want it? Now!
Hey there, have you voted yes?
Of course we do.
Don't forget to vote.
I'm voting yes for my brothers, my titters, my sister girls, my brother boys.
Just put it in there.
You ready? Go.
Enough people have come out for the community as a whole to see that we are part of it and as deserving of a fair go as anyone else.
I'm saying yes because I believe in a more just, more loving, more compassionate and more free society.
I stand with you until the end. Let's go forward.
Hello, happy Sunday. Just a few statistics. The No campaign have announced that they will raise $20 million. They have spent on a ratio of 5 to 1 what the Yes side has spent, and that's clearly impacted us in the polling. So if you think this is a fair fight, think again. And if you think this is a done deal, you really need to think again. You know, there were a lot of moments when we were all huddled in the trenches together going, just head down, keep going, and the barrage of stuff that you'd get, you know. And my mum was dying, which was just not the best timing. But it also, because she was dying, boy, I felt how important human relationships are. And I think it made me sort of change tacks. It's not just about love and all that beautiful stuff. It's about when that hard stuff happens.
The journey for a better world, for a fairer country, is a long, long, long one. This has been hard on all of you. It's been hard on everybody right across Australia, but especially LGBTI people. We have had a public vote on our dignity. We only have a little while to go, and I understand that there's an awful lot of butterflies and a lot of stomachs, not just in this park, but right across Australia. But what I would say as we wait for a result, this is a journey that started long ago, and it's a journey that will continue after today, no matter what happens today.
I called this media conference to announce the results of the Australian Marriage Law Postal Survey. So now to the final count of participation. Millions of Australians reported and responded to this voluntary survey. And the final number was 12,727,920 people. Overall, this survey achieved a response rate of 79.5%. And now the official results of the Australian Marriage Law Postal Survey. For the national result, yes responses, 7,817,247, representing 61.6% of clear responses. That's 61.6% of clear responses were yes. Every state and territory recorded a majority yes result.
Love is in the air. Everywhere I look around. Love is in the air. Every sight and every sound. And I don't know if I'm being foolish, don't know if I'm being wise, but it's something that I must believe in. And it's there when I look in your eyes. Love is in the air, in the whisper of the tree. Love is in the air.
Love has had a landslide victory. Congratulations!
A huge part of who I am has just been validated as equal. And there's no greater gift in this world than unabashed acceptance by other people. There's no greater gift in the world than being accepted for who you are.
What got us here today are 3 words: passion, determination and courage. We have defied gravity.
None of us can live in a bubble. We must find ways to reach out our hands across the divide as a nation. We've had virtually no leadership in this. We have led ourselves, and so we can rely on the Australian people to do the bloody right thing. Go us!
Of course, we're not quite there yet. We have to push the police now to do the right thing.
Three weeks after Australia says yes, Parliament is set to pass the Marriage Equality Bill.
Let's see what they're up to now.
We're not at the conclusion of the debate. Members in the public gallery, we are not at the conclusion of the
They know the inevitable in the gallery. Yeah, go.
The Prime Minister has the call. What a day!
Ah, go away.
For equality, for respect. Australia has done it. Every Australian had their say and they said it's fair. Get on with it.
God, he's such a big empty vessel, isn't it, that man?
Those who voted yes and those who voted no, for every one of us, this is a great day. It belongs to every Australian, the 45th Parliament.
But not for us, was it?
Delivering, getting on with it. It's fair. We've done the work. We've done it together. Let's do it.
You could have done it years ago.
All up the doors. As there are fewer than 5 members on the side for the noes in this division, I declare the question resolved in the affirmative. That's it.
Yeah! It's happened. Wow. Probably the most bitter, sweet moment in my almost 50 years of activism. Oh, dear Bob, we missed out. Dear man.
Only those who have known discrimination truly know its evil. Only those who have never experienced prejudice can discount the importance of laws that provide equality, justice, and inclusiveness for all.
I just can't wait to